I tried Andrew Huberman's morning routine for 100 days, and here's what I found, and why you should try it too. I gotta say, it's actually pretty life-changing. Andrew Huberman's morning routine is comprised of 6 steps. We're gonna go over all 6. Also include a final pro tip that I found from researching. I've watched a lot of Andrew Huberman content, and the last tip I've never seen until now. Quick interruption. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I will personally burn one of my suits. Back to the video. We're gonna go over all 6 steps and the benefits of each. I personally found all steps life-changing except one, but more on that later. Andrew Huberman's morning routine is comprised of step 1, waking up at about 6:30 in the morning. Step 2, delays coffee consumption for about 90 minutes. Step 3 would be intermittent fasting. Step 4, getting salt water in your system, or sea salt. 5th actually, getting some sunlight exposure. I almost forgot the 5th step, but so you want to go outside, get some sunlight. Step 6 is cold exposure. Those are the 6 steps. The 7th step, I'll include that at the end of the video. To go over step 1, Andrew Huberman believes in waking up between 6 to 6:30 in the morning. The reason is why. He wants to wake up at 6 in the morning because the sooner he can wake up, the sooner he can actually expose himself to sunlight. This is really important, and it's going to be covered more in the exposing yourself to sunlight step. But basically, he wants to wake up early and consistently at the same time, and I'll cover more on why that's important later. The 2nd step, which is I think the juiciest, getting yourself to delay caffeine consumption for about 90 minutes. Ideally, you wouldn't want to drink any coffee. If you're going to follow any of these steps, this is the one I recommend focusing on. If you can implement this single step, I believe it's going to change your life. Taking coffee 90 minutes after waking up. Why would you do that? Obviously, you wake up. Most people wake up a little tired. So why are you waiting 90 minutes? This was life-changing news to me. I've been in the productivity sphere for a while, and I've never even heard anybody mention this up to Andrew Huberman. So the reason he recommends actually waiting 90 minutes is because of how caffeine actually works. So the reason caffeine makes you feel awake and alert is because it does a blockage of what's called adenosine. Your body naturally will produce adenosine, so you can feel a little sleepy, tired. So the reason that caffeine works so well is because it actually blocks adenosine from entering the body's system. Imagine like a dam. It won't be able to make you feel tired. The problem with this is though, that exactly like a dam, instead of allowing the adenosine to naturally flow in a trickle state, it'll actually be blocked and build up until the caffeine wears out. Caffeine naturally and inevitably will wear out of your body. What ends up happening is it kind of bursts the dam. So the adenosine will then enter the body in an even more aggressive manner. A chain reaction to it gives you a crash, overwhelming feeling of exhaustion. That's usually when people start feeling tired, and they'll then again consume more caffeine, creating this perpetual cycle of endlessly needing coffee. Or not, they'll have a crash. So why is that important? Why do you care about how that works? So the reason why is because that if you can actually delay caffeine consumption, what ends up happening, the adenosine will naturally run its course within like about an hour and a half after awakening. It'll slowly drip into your body, and of course you'll feel tired, but that will allow the adenosine to completely leave the body. So once there's no more adenosine in your body and those 90 minutes have passed and you consume caffeine, you'll have that alertness, that awakeness, but at the end of the caffeine, once the caffeine has actually been depleted from your body, you won't experience that huge crash because any adenosine is now a natural level. If you can actually manage to delay the caffeine, you won't have that huge dam break because there wasn't a buildup of adenosine. You already let it drain out of your body. You can feel alert throughout the whole day versus having this boom and bust cycle of taking caffeine, wearing it out, having a crash, consuming more caffeine, and just going on and on for the rest of your life. So obviously there's a huge benefit to doing that. And I would say this was the most life-changing step out of all of them because I didn't feel as tired anymore and I didn't have that crash. When it comes to taking caffeine, I actually take caffeine pills. So I take these usually right when I wake up, but in this new system, I basically wait till around 10 in the morning to actually start taking any coffee. There's a couple things that I would mention. One, if you're used to waking up and instantly drinking coffee, you will feel tired for those first 90 minutes. For me, it was actually brutal, so brutal, because I have a caffeine addiction almost, that I only would wait 1 hour and I slowly built up to an hour and a half. Secondly, since you have this like click run response to when you wake up, you instantly take coffee. If you were to do this new plan, you're gonna forget to actually take your coffee. You no longer have that rhythm. You'll be at work or whatever your daily life looks like. I personally have a corporate job. dumb, so I ended up clocking into work. I'll completely forget. And at first when I started doing this, what ended up happening is I would altogether forget to take caffeine and actually suffer caffeine withdrawals. It'll be like 1 p.m. and I'll be lightheaded, and I realized, oh, I never took any coffee because I was so used to taking it right in the morning that I never thought, oh, it's time to take my caffeine. So I actually had to start writing down in my to-do list, caffeine, 10 a.m. because if not, I would forget. So keep that in mind. You probably will forget if it's so ingrained in you to take it right in the morning. You're not going to remember to take it later if you decide to skip it to follow the program. Obviously, we know it's important to delay it, but what about those people that don't drink caffeine? And what about if you do drink caffeine, but maybe not regularly? Why is it even part of the system to take caffeine? Caffeine itself is what's considered a nootropic. Nootropics are brain drugs. It basically helps your cognitive ability to interpret data, function, that quickness in basically getting work done. You become a more productive person on caffeine. This is a bit obvious. It makes you alert. It makes you more awake. A lot of people already know it makes you productive. Andrew Huberman recommends taking between 100 to 400 milligrams. After 400 milligrams, you might be over consuming caffeine. It's just unnecessary. And I do recommend taking caffeine, as does Andrew Huberman, because it does have this nootropic effect. You'll have an edge on people. Anything that can give you an edge is really important. You're trying to compete like in a corporate environment or you're self-employed. Obviously, you want to be at the top of your game. And caffeine allows that to happen. Scientific reason as to why you want to take caffeine is caffeine actually increases the number of dopamine receptors. Dopamine being the motivation and happy chemical in the body. If you can manage to increase the amount of dopamine receptors, you'll motivated and more driven to get things done. Some studies have even shown that increased level of dopamine decrease levels of depression. So they could potentially even make you just genuinely a happy person. So if you can take caffeine and it shows to increase those dopamine receptors, why wouldn't you? So that's one of the major reasons why he actually recommends it as well, aside from its alert causing effects. And the last thing I want to mention about caffeine, it does increase epinephrine, which is basically like adrenaline. Well, epinephrine basically is a thing that gives you energy. It makes you alert. He says you should try to prevent caffeine consumption at about 8 hours before sleep. Avoid caffeine like around 4 p.m. if you go to bed at 12, because that way it gives your body 8 hours to run through that caffeine, so you can now feel sleepy again at 12. Even if you're able to get 8 hours, having chugged caffeine a few hours before bed, your sleep quality itself will be diminished. And if you have diminished sleep quality, you're basically a diminished version of yourself. And the quality of sleep itself is really important for productivity and just brain function. So same as the reason why caffeine is important, so it can give you an edge, it's also important to not consume it before bed, or it will deplete your ability to perform. So that's the whole caffeine step. Next step is intermittent fasting. So this one I'm excited to talk about because I have actually been doing intermittent fasting for over a year, well over a year. Before I even discovered productivity, I was really into fitness. In fitness, it's highly recommended to do fasting, but today I'm going to try to cover why Andrew Huberman believes it's beneficial. He thinks you should eat during your waking hours, so that would be like the afternoon. He does what's called a 16-8 fast. You're only eating in an 8-hour window and fasting the next 16. It's not as bad as it sounds because 8 of those you should ideally be sleeping, so you only have to really fast for 8 hours. So fasting till 1 p.m., meaning you will be skipping breakfast. Then after that, you want to eat dinner like around 6 or 7, but no further than 9. If you can manage to stop eating before around 8 or 9, increase your quality of sleep because it gives your body time to digest. Why would you even want intermittent fast? You actually have increased metabolic markers. Increased metabolic markers are basically what leads to calorie burning. So it helps with weight loss and keeping weight off. Additionally to that, that compound that increases adrenaline, I can't pronounce it too well, but epinephrine, it will increase adrenaline, which increases alerts. Just kind of like how caffeine does. It basically means if you fast, you're a more productive individual. That's why if you notice when you eat a lot, you kind of feel a little exhausted, tired. It's believed because back in the day when we had to hunt, if we were hungry, we associate that with alertness, and the reason our bodies does that is because we need energy to hunt. So if you're hungry, boom, it releases epinephrine, which means you're now ready to hunt, you're alert. Additionally, it has a benefit of decreased liver diseases. So those are the big 3 that Andrew Huberman quotes. Decreased liver diseases, increased metabolic markers or calorie burning abilities, so weight loss. Thirdly is the productivity from the increased epinephrine. These are the ones that Andrew Huberman covers, but I'll kind of just go into some of the other benefits which some notable names in science have mentioned. These are more preliminary, and that's why I believe Andrew Huberman actually excluded these when he talks about the benefits of fasting. And that's because they're not entirely researched yet, but take them with a grain of salt. It's useful to just know that they may have this benefit. So one of the big ones right now is longevity. So if you've ever heard like Brian Johnson, that study the ability to live longer. Some people believe that fasting is one of those things. If you can fast, you'll live longer. There's studies as to why this is, but that's not what this video is about. Just know that it could make you live longer potentially. Take that with a grain of salt. Lastly, there's some markers that are showing that it will increase testosterone. And if it increases testosterone, it will increase your ability to build muscle. There's also some preliminary studies showing that it might help with brain function in preventing Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease. To kind of cover how fasting feels for me, I started fasting over a year ago for more of the fitness benefits. The reason fasting has been life-changing in my opinion is because, one, it's really hard to overeat because you're only eating 2 meals. For you to overeat, you'd have to basically stuff yourself for those 2 meals. Keeps me in line from overconsumption. Secondly, it also saves me a lot of time. Not only does being hungry increase productivity, but now I don't have to waste time cooking breakfast, eating the breakfast. I can just wake up and go to work, and I don't have to deal with making food till 1. Pretty life-changing for me, because if you take 30 minutes to cook, 30 minutes to eat, you're easily wasting an hour on breakfast. If you can cut that to 0, I mean, that's an hour back. Over a year, talking about 365 hours a year of saved time. That's a ton. That's the big benefits for me. I will say, when I first started, I felt extremely hungry. You'll probably hear your own stomach because you're used to eating in the morning. But just trust the process. Give it a month or 2. Fasting will become easy. Trust me. You just stick to it. It really is worth it. Who doesn't want to look good? Who doesn't want to lose a little bit of weight? And who doesn't want more time in the day? So stick to that. Step number 3. Andrew Huberman recommends salt water. This is the one thing I actually didn't like. He has 6 steps. I loved all of them except this one. I actually consume a lot of sodium. It's not good for me. Like, I don't need any more salt in my diet. The reason Andrew Huberman actually recommends it and why it might be helpful for you is because if you actually have low blood pressure or low sodium intake, you'll feel lethargic because you need salt. It helps your brain and body. If you do suffer from that, taking salt water or sea salt boosts your energy. But if you're a person like me, you actually might not need it. Additionally, the American diet's filled with salts. If you live in America, more than likely you probably get enough salt. So I actually didn't see this one as beneficial. It's not something I'm going to continue doing. You should probably see if you consume enough sodium. You get your blood work done, and I recommend getting it done before you even think of doing this part of the morning routine. Because if you have, like any other vitamin or any other substance that your body needs, if you have less than ideal, you should try to get it up there. But if you already have overconsumption or enough, it's not necessary and it might actually be detrimental. So this one I recommend actually looking into before you jump right in and just start taking salt water. Especially, like I mentioned, the American diet, like a burger, already has a lot of salt, meats, everything salted to preserve it. It's not super beneficial, I would say, for most people. 4th step is get sunlight. This actually ties into the reason he wakes up early as well. Our bodies have what's called circadian clock. Basically, these timers go off as soon as you get sunlight. And why it's important to set these off as soon as possible is because once the timers run out of time is once you'll feel sleepy. But if you were to get sunlight till like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, your timer will continue going past 12, which basically means you won't feel tired at all when you're supposed to be going to bed, and it'll have this perpetual cycle of you never being able to get good sleep. So it's important to wake up early and actually get sunlight as soon as possible. And some people might argue, well, what's the point of waking up early, or can I just get sunlight whenever? The thing is, it ties into waking up exactly at 6 or 6:30 in the morning every time, because there's also additional benefits to waking up at the exact same hour, and to do that, you would need to get sunlight immediately and wake up at the same hour. So they're tied together. But the reason you want to, and this is seen in a Harvard study that Huberman quotes, the study found that in test scores, students perform better not by the time of sleep or amount of sleep, but by the consistency of sleep. So if you have a person who sleeps 6 hours every day, they will technically perform better than a person that right before the test gets 8 or even 10 hours of sleep. Because it's not about how much sleep you get, it's how consistent your sleep actually is. That was actually shocking to me. I had no clue that it didn't work that way. Basically, it doesn't even matter if you get a lot of sleep. You'll still feel tired if your sleep schedule is different every night. And to get it fixed, you need to be able to wake up at the exact same time, including including weekends, and actually be able to get sunlight as soon as you wake up, so you can have that timer go off ASAP. Because even if you wake up at the same time, but your timer doesn't go off because you stayed in bed looking at your phone, what ends up happening is your timer's not going off and you'll feel wide awake at 1 in the morning. And we've all been there. It's not fun when you have to go to work on Monday. So some of the big benefits of actually getting sunlight early in the morning is one, well, obviously it helps with your sleep schedule, your circadian clock. Secondly, it's shown to actually increase dopamine, and increased dopamine once more is a thing that's increased happiness and increased motivation, and helps you be alert and motivated. Decrease depression, decrease sadness, and overall just makes you more productive. Additionally, apparently getting sunlight has shown to decrease certain diseases. Why not do it? This one's not as hard as you would expect. He only recommends getting about 5 minutes of sunlight. It does have to be you being outside, no sunglasses. Glasses and contacts are okay, but no sunglasses. Don't look directly at the sun. Never do that. You can do this by just being outside, drinking a glass of water, maybe your salt water. You may have like a hectic morning and you're like, well, can I just maybe get it from my car while I'm driving? Can I get it next to my office window? No, unfortunately, how the sunlight works, the window, even if clear, will prevent adequate amount of sunlight to reach you. So what ends up happening, you have to be there for a longer time. Which brings me to my next point. What happens if the weather isn't ideal? So in sunny or partially cloudy weather, 5 minutes, that's all you need. If it's very heavy clouds and there's not a lot of sunlight, 10 minutes. If it's raining, so there's barely any sunlight, you now want 15 minutes. So that way you can plan your day a little bit, but just try to shoot for at least 5. Trust me, 5 minutes goes out really quickly. And if you want to combine this with maybe stretching or meditation, I mean, you can crack like 2 eggs at once, but make sure your eyes are open. I've seen people do his routine where they kind of meditate with their eyes closed, and that defeats the purpose. It's same thing as like getting sunlight through a window. It's not going to be enough sunlight, so you do want to keep your eyes open. Obviously you can blink, but don't close them the whole time. I would stand outside, drink water as I was looking at the sun. 1, help me stay hydrated, and 2, help me do the sunlight portion of the morning routine. The 6th and final step is just getting cold exposure. A lot of people for some reason have done it daily, but that's not even what Huberman recommends. So Huberman recommends that you get about 11 minutes of cold exposure a week. This means that you really only need to do a few sessions per week. It depends how long you expose yourself to cold elements, but if you're doing 2 to 3 minutes, you really should only be doing 4 to maybe 6 sessions a week. In the example that you do what I did, which is 3 minutes in the shower, 3 minutes of cold exposure, so you're just standing under the water as cold as possible for 3 minutes, you would only need 4 sessions. 4 times 3, that's 12 minutes, you got your 11 in. So I would do 1 day yes, 1 day no. Trying to get at least 4 a week. If you were to only do 2 minutes, you now have to extend it where you have to do 6 sessions. So I really recommend just doing 3 minutes. You don't feel the difference. Once you're in there, you're in there. This will get a lot easier because your body builds up brown fat around your chest area, which is what gives you insulation. It's not chubby fat, so it's not going to make you fat, but it will build up this like insulation within the body. So that's how people are able to walk on snow and things like that, because they've adapted, build up more brown fat. When the same thing happens in cold showers. The huge benefits to doing this, a big one, you have increased dopamine levels by 250% than regular levels. Gives you increased motivation and drive to get things done. So it makes you just an overall happier and more productive person. It makes you more alert, and it also makes you more resistant. So a lot of like Marines, Navy training programs will make people go in cold water, and the reason is it builds mental resilience. If you know you can overcome a cold shower, kind of train yourself to think, I can overcome things and it will subside, so you're able to take on more pain, which is just really cool. Additionally to the dopamine response, which is a really high number. Apparently this is only seen with things such as like drugs or other vices of this high of a dopamine response. So it's actually one of the best ways to increase dopamine. So especially if you're like experiencing things like depression or lack of motivation, you would want to do this step. This one is very important so you can get an increase in that dopamine rush. And it goes throughout the day. It won't just wear out instantly. I recommend just doing like 3 minutes every other day. It's not that hard. You'll get used to it. You'll build up the system. Just make sure you do it because the benefits are ridiculous. Some of the big benefits of the cold exposure, it will increase insulin management, your metabolism, so your ability to burn fat and have weight loss, which is obviously a huge benefit there. The dopamine, obviously. Also decreases inflammation. Lots of benefits. Just do it. It's very useful. What I did and what I find the easiest There's a concept of relative temperatures when it comes to your body's reactions to them. If you were to just jump right in, cold water, do the 3 minutes, it will be painful. But if you slowly build up to it, your body won't feel it as drastically, because you have this thing where basically your body will react to its relativeness to its current state. So what I would do and what I recommend is if you just take a normal shower, but every minute or so, just drop it a little and a little colder till eventually you're done showering and you're almost at the coldest session. So now that you're done showering, you just boom, turn it up to the coldest session. It's the shower itself can't get that cold. Usually right at ideal temperature. You just need to do 3 minutes, set a timer, boom, in, out, get out of there. If you don't want to be cold, you can just dry off as quickly as possible. If you want to try to take it a step further, you could try to leave it on, maybe brush your teeth, and the water evaporating will make you really cold. Those are all the 6 steps. I do have one final tip. Honestly, he changed my whole desk setup. He recommends not having your monitor just at eye level. You should actually have it above eye level. What this does is looking upwards increases your alertness. You're a little bit more focused. And previously I even had it below. I never realized that if you have it above, focuses you in. Something about having your head tilted upwards gives you better focus and just feels better on your back. I've personally suffered from back problems in the past where on my desk I feel a little hunched over. This was already having a monitor at eye level. Having it at an increased height has actually helped me pretty drastically. You won't actually see the benefits unless you try it, because a lot of people ignore it and they don't think it's gonna make that big of an impact, but it really did for me. Highly recommend anybody try the Andrew Huberman program. I'm definitely gonna continue a few of the steps. I really appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. Please drop a like, leave a comment. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and talk to you soon.